The red pill.
The red pill.
The red pill.
The red pill community.
The red pill.
The red pill.
The red pill.
The red pill.
The red pill is a mindset, worldview, ideology within the manosphere which has been gaining a lot of popularity as of late. And despite it ostensibly being about the pursuit of the capital T truth, for some reason it has a subset of men and even young boys beginning to sound like this.
What did you say? F the woman. F the woman.
What? We love women. We love women. We love women.
But not like transgenders.
Yes, sir. We love everybody. No.
All gays.
Oh no.
If you watch enough red pill content, you will conclude that there isn't a singular truth that they're coming to. Rather, they're seemingly supplying credibility toward two truths, which is to say the truth about society, which they refer to as the matrix, and then the other half of that, which is probably the thing you're both nervous and excited for me to talk about, the truth about women, what the red pill refers to as female nature, which includes presuppositions like the idea that women live life on easy mode.
Women have it on easy mode.
Women live life on easy mode.
Women live life on easy mode in 2023.
However, that their value peaks at the ripe old age of 23 years old. So in this video, I will be combining my academic background as well as my background of being terminally online to determine whether the red pill is merely telling boys, young men to self-improve, or whether the red pill is actually a bastion of misogyny. Hello and welcome back to the Laytonicles channel. It is I, the Layton in question, and today we will be investigating the red pill, a subsidiary ideology within the manosphere. So, over the past few months, if not years, you have likely noticed an uptick in the discourse surrounding sex and dating dynamics, and this is probably primarily propagated by podcasts such as Fresh and Fit.
I've said on the podcast many times, a woman's ejaculation doesn't matter. Like, who cares?
JustPearlyThings.
They like being cheated. I swear to God, this show has made me believe. I think women like to be cheated on.
The Whatever Podcast.
Ask everyone to rate their looks on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, we'll start with you. Go ahead.
Rate
your physical looks on a scale of 1 to 10.
And then you have other characters that are peripherally related to discussions like these. So you have Aber and Preach, Sneako, Destiny, Hamza, Andrew Tate. So where this video will be slotting into the discourse will be by providing a systematic review, breakdown of some of the core truths, core tenets, so to speak, of the red pill, which I feel pretty well credentialed in talking about. You know, I have some academic research in cults and online communities. And then on a personal note, so it's not just abstract academic theories and blah, blah, I actually have people in my real life, friends and family, that the red pill has permeated to. And I've had conversations with these people. And so basically, their brain is in my brain. I know how they think on a one-to-one. It's not just, you know, through screens of the internet. I have a personal investment in getting to the bottom of this. And so before continuing, I will briefly talk about what this video is as well as what this video isn't. And for the first it's more so not necessarily about the video, but the creator of the video, which is to say me. Yes, I'm aware of the dating app statistics and things that have been coming out of spaces like these. I'm aware that generally speaking, 80% of men are deemed basically invisible, undateable by most women. And then it's basically the top 20% that are considered viable and dateable, let's say. I'm also aware that it's roughly, you know, men will say yes to women on dating apps around 50% of the time, whereas women will say yes to men around 5% of the time. And the reason why I'm aware of this is because I already did a video on this topic, the dating app dilemma, so to speak, which talked about the rise of incels and fuckboys and everything in between, and where society as a whole is going to be going towards. This video will be following in the footsteps of that one by providing a whole host of academic citations and research. I'm going to be synthesizing the thoughts of many people, including psychologists and evolutionary psychologists and other academics, and then of course I'll have my interjects of the red pill clip, so you know what I'm talking about. Contextualization, baby boy. As well as jokes, of course. And then to talk about what this video isn't, I don't know if you've noticed, but there seems to be like a whole industry dedicated to spoon feeding your own opinions back to you. And I refer to this as the confirmation bias industry. And so this video, like all my other videos, are not going to be that, because around here, we're a big fan of the N-word, which is to say, nuance. I have no interest in placating to a side. All I really want to do is share my thoughts and opinions and honest analysis with you, and then hope that we can have a civilized discussion in the comments below. And so that is round about everything. So please, for your boy, drop a like if you are excited to go out on this voyage as we investigate the credibility of the red pill ideology together. When it comes to the red pill ideology, the idea of the Matrix is probably the most compelling part to me, which is somewhat of a shame because it's the part of the video that we're going to be spending the least amount of time on, partially because I could spend a whole video talking about it in and of itself, and then partially because the thing that I want to spend the most amount of time doing in this video is talking about the red pill's perception on women. We're going to talk about the Matrix a little, and then we're going to talk about the red pill's concept of women pretty substantially. So now let's begin. Let's start with first principles. What is the Matrix? The Matrix is seemingly the conceptual word or conceptual term to explain reality or assume to be reality. The red pill's usage seemingly is derivative of the ideas and themes found in the film of the same name released in 1999, and that is seemingly derivative of the ideas and themes found in the allegory of Plato's cave released in 380 BC. So going all the way back so that we can return to the present, Plato's allegory of the cave is an allegory, an analogy positing that what we take for granted as reality is actually not. It is an illusion. So, to blast through it in pretty simplified terms, there are people, prisoners, shackled to a cave wherein they are forced to watch shadows, and because the shadows are the only thing that these prisoners have ever known, they assume that to be reality. However, what they don't know is that actually puppeteers behind them are actually creating the shadows, creating the images, let's say, and those images are being projected by fire behind them, and fire in the allegory is supposed to be kind of like a false source of truth as compared to the sun, which is supposed to be the real light source. The fire is supposed to be a poor imitation. Now, Socrates, who is considered to be the daddy, the granddaddy of all of Western philosophy, proposes that if a prisoner were to leave the cave and try and look out to the sun, it would hurt their eyes because the cave is all that they've ever known. They've adapted to seeing the cave, the illusions of the cave. So essentially, to experience truth from the outside when all you have ever known is lies would hurt you, and therefore you would probably return to the cave of lies, so to speak. And so the parallel to the Matrix is that Neo, the protagonist, comes under the realization that he has been living in false reality, and then he's presented with the option to live in the truth, so to speak, and that comes to him in the option of the red pill or the blue pill.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
So we can probably all recognize that the whole red pill, blue pill dynamic is somewhat of a false dichotomy. It's pretty difficult to divide up everything in life and be like, this is the true version, this is the false version, you know? But I do think that there's something pretty compelling about it. You know, in the back of our like lizard brains, we're all under the, you know, the esoteric, the things they don't want you to know, man. I think we all enjoy the idea of considering that, like, what we refer to as society, there are these fabricated elements of it, and you probably think this even more so if you've ever said something to the effect of, like, society is a social construct. Like, embedded within that is this idea that we're all adhering to these rules and falsehoods that we actually needn't do. And many of those rules are set by people that ostensibly are trying to oppress us, control us, keep us docile, obedient, dormant, etc. Synonyms. Again, part of the things that I think makes the idea of the Matrix so compelling is that most of us can look around in our lives and kind of conclude that we're all kind of being fucked. You know what I mean? The education didn't set us up to do well. We're all kind of subjected to wage slavery, rent's going up, but the wages are getting flatter, and it's like, oh, maybe I'll have to choose between keeping the heating on this month or getting grocery. You know, it's not great. Some other things that I think are making the red pill compelling to young men specifically, however, on top of the, you know, the things that we're all kind of subjected to, is what happens to, let's say, like low status men, and that's, you know, to do with life in general, but then particularly the dating market, you know. So there seems to be a kind of like whole discussion, whole cohort talking forever about the discourse about how, you know, dating apps have basically made it borderline impossible for a whole subsection. It's not even a subsection when it's a majority. A whole majority of men to, you know, love is off the cards for them, which is why now they're watching like Twitch girl ear-licking ASMR, you know, they're contemplating getting a AI girlfriend. They're listening to fucking AI Batman help them overcome their chronic addiction.
Do not settle for a cheap and empty imitation of love. You deserve real love.
The fellas are down bad, bro. A lot of them are really down bad. And this, to make it worse, the salt in the wound is against the backdrop of like the past 15 years where everybody's been like, male privilege, male privilege. I'm sure there are like so many people that are like, well, you talk about this male privilege. I'd fucking like some because I am suffering. I should point out, I'm not saying that I'm a woe is me guy, but I can see why guys would be woe is me. You know? Have you seen Fight Club? No. So you're suffering away, and all you want is for somebody to recognize your pain, somebody to recite your story back to you. And then, this bald-headed man, claiming himself to be Morpheus, sits down on a podcast and tells you and the world your story.
I don't think most women can actually genuinely understand how lonely the majority of men are.
Yeah.
And you need to truly understand, if you're Joe Schmo, average in nearly every way, in Starbucks working, you ain't getting a DM ever. Most men ain't shit. You know that. If you think about it, most men ain't shit. Go walk down the high street. Tell me how many of them stand a chance with you. Usually fucking zero. Most men are desperately lonely. Desperately. So you want to sit here and talk about the struggles of life as a woman. There are men out here, the male suicide rate is so many times higher than women for a reason.
Of course.
The life as an average man is brutally depressing.
You emotionally resonate, and then you think, well, if this man can identify the symptoms of my pain, of my plight, with such accuracy, such perspicacity, if you will, then all you have to do is continue listening to receive the cure. You give, increasingly, people, characters of the manosphere, even more of your attention. Before long, the algorithm begins feeding you more. Oh, you like this thing? Well, how about this one? You tried operating under your own worldview, and you've ran the predictions, and it seems like the conclusion is going to be pretty dismal. And so, rather than continuing on with your own worldview, you start to buy into their worldview. You start to buy into their ideology.
And ideologies are dangerous for a variety of reasons, but the primary reason for their danger, I think, this is a hypothesis, is because of their one-sided nature. What happens is that they capitalize, parasitize, I think is even a better way of thinking about it, a profound underlying narrative, but they don't tell the entire story.
Weary traveler. Be careful that in the pursuit of trying to escape the matrix, that you don't become prey for somebody else's. Which, I would argue, is precisely what the Red Pill is designed to do, to curate this hyper-specific experience, to keep you coming back for more, to guarantee that you keep coming back for more, and to, in turn, guarantee that they have a funnel of financial ad revenue to keep them going. Which, honestly, if I'm gonna keep it a buck, is kind of a genius business model. It's almost deceptively simple, because what you have is a captive audience meeting a controlled opposition. So, a captive audience is defined as a person or people who are unable to leave a place and are thus forced to listen to what is being said. So obviously the first thing, or the first caveat, is the word forced, because they're not being forced in the same way that they were being forced in, you know, the Plato's cave way, where you're literally chained to the cave, cannot leave, you are forced to watch shadows, let's say. However, because increasingly people are not experiencing the world firsthand, they're getting it through a proxy, people aren't having their own lived experiences and having time to make up their own minds. They're having it fed to them by other people. So it's important to establish here in the video that for many men, particularly I suppose the ones that we're talking about, their only interaction with women is through or these fucking podcasts. Because if you actually have women in your real life, you're probably not satisfied by watching these curated representations online. You're probably not watching Fresh and Fit, is my point.
So if a man wants sex, that's one of the few things that men ask for. You know what I'm saying? And if you guys don't deliver on that, you're useless. I'll just be honest.
There's a whole host of reasons as to why younger people are more susceptible. You know, there's the Dunning-Kruger effect. You have the anchoring effect. You have young people primarily being in the messianic phase, which is a Piagetian term, you know, that kind of like, I'm young, but I want to change the world, you know, that like revolutionary spirit, so to speak. And so whenever you cotton onto these truths, all of a sudden your mind and reality automatically changes. And without having anything to compare to what is being propagated on, you know, these podcasts and these, you know, your little TikTok clips, you can become susceptible to what is referred to as ideological capture, which is why philosophers like Carl Jung have bars like the idea that some people have ideas, but sometimes ideas have people. You think you understand something, and then something comes along to smash your worldview, and then you realize that you've been looking at something all wrong. Your perspective has been off, my guy. People exploit your lack of knowledge for personal gain. Law 11 from the 48 Laws of Power. Learn to keep people dependent on you. You are dependent, maybe not you in particular, but the Red Pill audience is dependent on these proxy representations of women, and that specifically is the thing that I want to talk about next. Representations. The women aren't women per se or women holistically. The women that they invite on these podcasts are part of the controlled opposition.
What about the president of Paris? Do you know what the president of Paris is?
Bro, Paris is a part of the U.S.
Paris is a part of the U.S. Joe Biden is the president of Paris. I forget what state is Paris in, because you said Paris is in the U.S.
Oh,
do you remember?
London.
Paris is in London, and Joe Biden is the president of London and Paris.
Controlled opposition is an opposition that is set up to create the illusion of an opposing point of view. It's essentially a propaganda tool. It's not a real opposition, it's just there to make the other opposition look good and give the illusion of an alternative. And in the case of the Red Pill, it's almost as if they say, here is women as a holistic representative, and it's like, no, you're just picking from a very small sample size. Same people, different faces, essentially. But your brain doesn't realize that, because in your head you're like, oh well, I've heard from hundreds of women, they all basically sound the same. It's like, no, you're just hearing from the same kinds of ones. Imagine, baby boy, if you had never had ice cream before, and so every time you had ice cream it was frog flavored, you would probably conclude from that like, oh, I guess I just don't like ice cream then. It's like, no, you've just had one kind over and over again and assumes that there's a fucking infinite pantheon of other ice creams. Why is he making an analogy about ice creams of women? What else do you want me to pick from, bro? Shows like Your Fresh and Fits of the World, they don't really care for having a representative panel, because that's not the point. What they're doing time and again is A/B testing what brings the biggest draw to the show, and so that is how they've concluded of getting eye candy, you know, people that are chosen for their exterior appeal as opposed to interior appeal. These people are not being chosen for their incredible thoughts and commentary, which is why when it comes to Red Pill shows, more often than not, you will find the panel of women being IG and OF creators, which is why they're willing to voluntarily subject themselves to what is essentially a humiliation ritual, of which there is a big frothing at the mouth cohort of men that are overly enthusiastic about dunking on them, essentially.
Like, what part of me is it that takes satisfaction from watching guys that are prepped shit on girls that have just come and sit in a podcast?
Imagine to how many guys that is so attractive to. Imagine how many guys are like literally not attracting any women whatsoever. All they have, it's not even a part, that is just them. It's just hateful, resentful. And then they go into a show where a girl's getting made fun of, and you know the girl says something, but he's like, no, but here's the fact. Like, here, you didn't research like we did. Like that guy's gonna feel like some kind of fulfillment from that. Like, yes, like finally, like they're getting put in their place.
And you may say that this is deserved because, after all, they can leave whenever they want. And it's like, no, because they're not there to be an honest representation. They won't leave because then they won't be able to get their bagger. They are employees, fundamentally. The key irony in this is that Red Pill broskies will tell you that female promiscuity is destroying the world, and yet they're exactly the kind of people that are propagating it and allowing it to become profitable, encouraging it to be profitable.
I've never seen a girl get dunked on more than this girl on Fresh and Fit ever. Like the whole chat was just on her the entire time. She got 12 100 paying subs in 24 hours. That's $12,000 a month. That's $144,000 a year for sitting there for 2.5 hours getting dunked on by the chat. And she wrote me later and she was like, yeah, it's totally worth it. I would do it again. That's what she told me.
People always ask the question, why would these women go on this podcast and get hated on all this stuff?
Because it's lucrative.
Some of them make a lot of money from it.
They understand the game. It's a game to them.
Most of those guys who say that stuff to those women actually just really feel negatively about themselves.
Yeah.
And they just project it outwardly onto the women. But if those women even showed them a modicum of attention, you know they would turn into simps so fast.
Yeah.
So they're doing all these fucking whores, whores. The girl's like, hi. Like, hello?
From the 48 Laws of Power. Law 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. Red Pill fans are the people, and the models that they bring in to dunk on routinely are the bait. What's somewhat interesting is that not only are Red Pill viewers a part of the captive audience, but the hosts are almost a part of their own captive audience, in that they're routinely subjecting themselves to the same kinds of people. So you almost get this kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy because of the selection bias that they have. All women are X, so I'll invite women that behave like X. They'll reinforce my beliefs that they're X, and then I'll continue to think that all women are X. You do not need to be an epistemologist to ask yourself, how do I know this is true? And if it comes from the internet, maybe that gives you another layer of consideration to think, is this true? Precisely because maybe there are financial incentives for hosts getting you to believe in shadows, if you will.
Glebus LA with a big $100 donation.
So now that the Matrix has been explained and critiqued, at least, well enough for the purposes of this video, we can now go on to unpack the Red Pill's perception of women and relationships, starting with the idea, the presupposition, that women live life on easy mode.
Women have it on easy mode.
Women live life on easy mode.
Women, you don't understand. You live life on easy street,
You live life on easy mode.
Women live life on easy mode.
Women live life on easy mode in 2023. Ever since feminism came, I would say they live life on easy mode.
So the Red Pill proposes that women live life on easy mode in two key areas, let's say, and those seemingly are their accessibility to relationships, as well as it being easier for them to accrue value as a whole. Let's see. Let's give the devil its due. Do women live on easy mode? Let's find out. Foreshadows menacingly. So the easy mode of accessibility to relationships. Let's start off with this, which I'll say seemingly Red Pill ideology seems to substantiate that claim with a lot of dating app data. So just to blast through some of that real quick. Most men are considered unattractive by most women, whereas most women are found at least somewhat attractive by most men. And then, as a matter of ratio, when it comes to dating apps, there are substantially way more men on the apps than there are women, in such a manner that even if there was an equitable distribution of, for every one woman and one man leaving the dating pool, say, there would still be a substantial remainder of men there. There are simply not enough women to go around on these apps, There's a cock surplus, as I said in the dating app video. And as I said earlier, men swipe yes on women 50% of the time, whereas women will swipe yes on a man 5% of the time. Cry. Now from this, as I think a lot of men conclude online, that men are just the fairer, more altruistic sex. They're just more willing to give people a chance compared to women. They're so picky. Am I right? And it's like, what's more likely is that women simply have more to consider when thinking about whether they want to have a relationship with a man, whereas men evidently are much less selective. You have the overall risk for a woman being higher when interacting with a man compared to vice versa. And then, as I went over in the dating app video and substantiated with the research of David Buss, generally speaking, women have more criteria in their mate selection than men do for women. You could say that there is a bimodal distribution for different mating strategies, wherein women's short-term and long-term wants for a partner are closer to being the same, whereas men's wants for a long-term or short-term partner are somewhat disparate. Which is why, for instance, Louise Perry said, as I cited in the previous video,
women tend to assess like short-term partners and long-term partners based on the same qualities. They want the same things in all the men they have sex with. Men don't do that. They have a much lower standard for their short-term partners than they do for long-term partners. And so they will be willing to have sex with a woman that they absolutely would not marry. They would not even introduce to their friends.
When it comes to relationship prospects, you could say that men are relationship scarce, whereas women are relationship abundant, or the prospect of them, at least. Which I'm sure for many of the disgruntled men online, they would hear that problem and conclude, oh wow, boo-hoo, you have too many options, must be nice. I imagine for them it's very much just like, oh, so you're suffering from success, but we should probably investigate what it actually means for that level of success, you know? What does success look like when you're inundated with guys that are kind of like yesing? Because I would argue, as I argued in the dating app video, that it's not for this, you know, genuine heartfelt connection. It's primarily going to be on a short-term basis. Most guys are just trying to get a fucking nut off, bro. Sometimes when guys look at me, they aren't really looking at me. They're like real-time projecting a fantasy onto me, and then I risk becoming their manic pixie dream girl, and it's hard to engage. I want to talk about various things and be nice to everyone, but just because a girl is pretty and likes a thing you like, it doesn't make her a perfect angel sent to earth just for you. Being friendly doesn't mean I'm your destiny. I think a lot of guys do this. They have this like fantasy in their head that if only they have a relationship with a woman, that it'll like make them complete, so to speak. There's a substantial difference between that like fleeting limerence and then yesing everybody on a dating app. Also, like, let's keep it a stack, you know what I mean? Despite women being inundated with a bunch of options of men, we're really not sending our best, bro.
Can I tell you what I want to do? What? I want to suck on your tits. Yours look amazing. Would you like to meet up sometime this next weekend? Ain't no way he said, wow, that's hot.
So now that we've gotten out of the way, this idea that women live life on easy mode because they have high, easy accessibility of getting into a relationship, now we can talk about how women ostensibly live on easy mode when it comes to them obtaining value. So if you've been in red pill circles long enough, you have likely heard this idea said to you like a mantra that women are what men must become.
One of the things we always talk about in sort of the manosphere or the red pill communities is that men must become and women just are.
And so your first question may be, what is meant by this? And to that I will say, men and women within the red pill space, their values are derived from different things. And so for men, their value is supposedly derived from looks, money, and status. Whereas for women, their value is derived from looks.
The female peak, prime, whatever you want to call it, is guaranteed, okay? Like, a woman can be 18 years old, unemployed, eat shit food, lies in bed all day, never goes to the gym, and yet she can be a smoking hot straight 10 out of 10, okay? As a man, you get to 18, you're skinny, you're spotty, you're broke, you're awkward, inexperienced. Like, it's just so difficult, okay, guys? So that guy would need to put in probably minimum like 8 years of hard work in all areas of life to be able to see something similar to what that woman had naturally at 18.
And this is how the red pill comes to the conclusion that women live life on easy mode, because as far as they're concerned, women don't actually work for their value in the way that a man has to work for his. Women are inherently born with value, whereas men, we have to roll the boulder up the cliff like fucking Sisyphus, bro. However, at this point in the video, I want to begin the takedown of this tenet of red pill ideology based on some of their own internal fucking beliefs, bro. So at the end of the dating app video, I foreshadowed this very video that you're watching right now with this idea of sexual market value created and propagated by Rollo Tomasi, who is, you know, thought to be the granddaddy of the red pill in and of itself. And according to him, according to the ideology at large, men's and women's value are distributed bimodally and by age, which is to say that, according to red pill ideology, men's value peaks at around 36, whereas women's value peaks at 23.
Where I peg women as far as their peak sexual market value is right around 22 or 23 years old.
23, 24.
23, okay. 24, right around there.
And the only way that there's any semblance of credibility in this is if you believe in this kind of like scientified equivocation, you know? women's fertility peaks at 23. Ipso facto, their value also peaks at 23. The red pill ostensibly treats women as though their entire value is derived from their ability to bear children, which doesn't even seem like an honest representation of what their inner thoughts actually are, because most of them are not particularly interested in child rearing or talking about it. It just seems like this more like a noble veneer. They're essentially saying their sex appeal is highest at 23, but they're trying to make it seem more noble, and so they're saying like, oh yeah, because it's the fertility, because like evolutionary even if we were operating under this rigid evolutionary biology criteria, because according to evolutionary biology, we as creatures, any organism for that matter, is supposed to do two things: survive and reproduce. Now, most animals do this until they can't anymore, which is to say that they die. However, humans are different in that we have menopause, which is almost like saying, hey man, your destiny, the point of your existence is not merely to continue having children. And because that happens across the board, an evolutionary biologist, one that's actually fucking worth something and not just like bastardizing the whole thing, would have to conclude that the reason that happens is because it's evolutionary beneficial for that to happen, which suggests women's sole role is not merely to bear children. And then tangentially related to that, even from like an existential point of view, like humans are not born specifically really to do anything. What's the Jean-Paul Sartre thing? Existence precedes essence, which is to say that you come into the world before there's a point to what you're supposed to do. We're all kind of blank canvases, and we get to decide throughout our lives what we're going to do, what we're going to make the point of our lives. And so to say that women's sole role is merely to like have a child, and that the susceptibility, the potential of the best chance of that peaks at 23, and so anything that happens thereafter is she's like worse or what, her value's gone down. It's like, you're fucking stupid, bro. You know, I might be a blue-pilled cuck, but I think it's perfectly reasonable and defensible that we shouldn't tie women's entire value merely to the prospect of them bearing children. But I could be wrong, and I probably am, given that I don't have the same opinion as this guy.
Like, don't get me wrong, once women get past 28, 29, it just declines rapidly. By 26, it's all like the first early signs of her decline are showing, okay?
You know what's wild? That's not even the worst of it. So, let me read something to you right quick. Okay, this originally was a tweet. I'll show it quickly, but I'll do my side column thing so I can read it with ease and you can read it with ease along with me. If you're a single woman over the age of 24, it's over for you. A woman is at her peak fertility at age 23. After this, she loses 10% per year in attractiveness and desirability. Men also become increasingly repulsed because they innately know older women have less time to breed. Fucking hell. Statistically, a woman has dated the highest quality man she can hope to secure by age 23. This is because high-value men select for high fertility. If she fails to secure commitment and rear children with him, she will need to settle for exponentially lower value men with time. Women are a hyper-deflationary asset class. You didn't need to write all that to tell us that you get no bitches. This topic of age and women's depreciation in value brings me to my next point. My next tenet of the red pill, the idea of the wall. And so I don't run the risk of misconstruing what the very technical and sophisticated idea of the wall is. Allow me to allow somebody else to explain the idea of the wall for me.
The wall is basically the part where I would say roughly around a age when a woman reaches age 30 and
so
her looks.
28 is about the start of
yeah,
it.
Yeah. It's about the start of it. But yeah. But I think 30 is a typical benchmark, and that's when her looks start to go downhill. Her ability to attract men or the same standard of men that she did when she was in her prime, which is usually sort of late teens to mid 20s, starts to shrink. And at that point, her dating pool obviously starts to shrink as well. Mm-hmm. And really, the goal for a lot of women is to bag the guy that she wants when she's in her prime. So I would say that at the age of 28, you're pretty much at the upper limit towards the end of your best period to be able to get the guy that you want.
I'm going to unpack this in a second, but why the fuck is it always the fucking crustiest dudes talking shit about women's looks online? Like, motherfuckers online, like, what would you rate this woman out of 10? It's like 3, and it's like, mate, you haven't seen daylight in 2 years, bro. Shut the fuck up. The resentment is real, is all I'm saying. There seem to be almost like archetypal themes at play, you know, like class warfare. It's almost as if like Red Pill sees women as like the privileged class, so to speak, because after all, they're inherently born with value, whereas men, you know, the downtrodden, they have to earn their value.
I always say on the show, privilege is invisible to those that have it. It didn't even come to her mind that I'm getting these privileges because I'm a woman. But women don't see it because privilege is invisible to them because it's so common.
So it's almost as if like women hitting the wall is their comeuppance, which is why there's this like level of schadenfreude that Red Pill dudes have of like, this so like edgy fucking Shadow the Hedgehog shit is like, her time is running out. What the fuck? I think the saddest, most cruel thing is that a lot of Red Pill dudes don't actually understand that what they perceive to be this like unearned blessing that women have, for many women, is actually a chronic curse. You know, this idea that their value is intrinsically tied to the way that they look. And most Red Pill audiences aren't going to be aware of this at all, because of the kinds of women that are actually brought on the shows. Again, they're not meant to be representative of women per se. Not only do most women not make an income off of their looks alone in the ways that many of these podcasts try to convey, most women don't even have good, healthy, positive relationships with their looks, period. And if you think that like beauty standards and body image issues are terrible now, mate, the early 2000s were a whole different beast.
Okay, Robin. Now, are we shooting for the large size category?
Yes, Robin would represent a plus size model.
I think next America's Top Model is not a plus size model. I'm sorry.
It was sad that you just kind of didn't put yourself out there, you know, representing women of a different size.
Robin, first of all, is too old to be starting model.
She's huge. It's clear that Robin doesn't have the personality to be a top model.
Why are you crying, Robin? Talk to me. Why are you crying?
I think both men and women use women's looks as a bigger, let's say, like slice of the pie for what they consider their value to be. I also think this is largely why that like body positivity is primarily for women and not for men, as I said in the dating app video, which I pointed out as a kind of double standard, but it's a double standard that I'm not necessarily upset by, because I think what body positivity is ostensibly at least trying to do, or implicitly doing, is expanding the, I don't know, radius, the diameter, whatever, that is considered attractive. And you know, the Red Pillars might find this unfair, but I don't think that they should, especially based on their own logic, because within their very own ideology, at least they can improve their status, whereas women can't. You know, theirs will just go down according to them. It's almost like those cartoons where there would always be a scene where like the protagonist would get trapped and like the walls would be closing in, you know? And so, considering this, is it true that women live easy lives, that their lives are easy mode? I think the only way that you could genuinely conclude this is if you made the fatal mistake, in my opinion, that you misconstrued life or a good life to merely mean having more sexual access or being considered of high value by strangers. And let's say that that was true. It isn't, but let's run the hypothetical as though it was. Let's crack open the old mathematics, right? If they're saying that the wall is 30 and you're legally an adult at 18, and also your brain is only fully developed at 25, but also they're saying that by age 23 you've already peaked, and so by the time even that your brain is fully developed, you're 2 years gone. By their own logic, you have like 7 years to bag the best guy that you can, and afterwards you're just like fucked because you've hit the wall. I'm no mathematician, but 7 years does not a good life make. Keeping it 100, if I had to pick, you know, at the character customization screen of life, I would pick the same immutable characteristics every single time. This race and this sex. Back to fucking back, bro. Like, if I had to choose to be in a relationship with people of this generation that have been influenced by this fucking bald-headed GTA character.
You know, me personally, right? So I won't date a girl who's older than 25. Bro, you go Moscow, you walk in the club, there's a 60-year-old mafia boss surrounded by 18-year-old girls. bro.
Really?
Oh yeah, all day. It's completely normal. Completely.
Wait, the 6-year-old, he's not with 30-year-old chicks.
No, fuck no, he's rich. think he's picking up some used up pussy? He's rich. No, bro. Used up pussy's for the broke boys. Like, you know, he ain't playing those games. He wants it fresh.
If her prefrontal cortex is fully formed, I don't want it. Am I right, fellas? To me, what it seems like is that to be a woman in the 21st century, maybe even ever, honestly, is to live in the prisoner's dilemma. Because on one hand, you don't want to be valued and looked upon merely for your looks. You know, you want to have your other talents and skills taken into account too for, you know, the judge of your character. But then on another hand, you relentlessly are so aware that you have to preserve your value, what you look like, otherwise you kind of just get discarded. Like, mate, I don't know if the fellas are watching this, but like, generally speaking, women start using like fucking anti-aging creams and serums from the age of, I don't know, their late teens to their early 20s, many of them. And you are still using fucking 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner, and you want to talk about motherfucking... I feel like I've just about exhausted this section of the video, the easy mode part, and that isn't even, you know, getting into the criteria outside of the things that the red pill has its eyeballs on. You know, the other things that can also make women's lives hard outside of value and being considered attractive by people. You know, things like having to bear pregnancy, likely being harassed by fucking weird, creepy guys from a teenage age. The damned if you do, damned if you don't. Are you gonna pick your career, or are you gonna pick having a family? The fact that women's default emotion seemingly is fear.
If you fill a room with men and women and you ask the question, have you ever feared for your life? What you will notice is that a few of the men's hands will go up. Each one of these men has a story about an isolated incident. What happens also is that every single hand of every woman in that audience will go up into the air. Now, if you ask the question, how many of you feared for your life in the last year? Most of the men's hands will go down unless the isolated incident they're talking about occurred within that last year. And again, all of the hands of the women stay up. If you ask the question, how many of you have feared for your safety in your life in the last month? Again, all of the women's hands stay up. And the same thing happens if you ask, how many of you feared for your life in the last week? All of the hands will stay up. And this exercise usually shocks the hell out of men, because this is the one thing that men do not understand about women.
More academically, to back up what I've just said and convey to you, developmentally, girls express fear earlier than boys, and in a large longitudinal study of personality development, more girls than boys were on a high fearfulness trajectory. Amongst adults, women experience fear more intensely than men. International studies find significant sex differences in the frequency, intensity, and duration of fear. Women express their fear more intensely than men, both verbally and non-verbally. The only way that I imagine you can still have this conclusion in your head of women live life on easy mode is if you are making the equivocation that, again, sexual access and being seen as valuable for a very short period of your time is equivalent to living a good life. You are running a univariate analysis, and your summary, your conclusion, is fucking dog shit, bro. I would probably go as far as to say that almost nobody lives life on easy mode. We all have varying levels of hard. That's all it is. And for the guys that I haven't managed to convince, that are still adamant that all the blame be put on women, that all the blame be put on women for the downfalls of society, if you are looking for a collectivist group to point the finger at for as to why you're in a state of suffering, let's say, or, you know, the world is just on fire, then maybe you want to look to the owners of the match group, i.e. the people that own basically all of the dating sites and apps, which, just FYI, all happen to be men. My guy, my driller, my broski, all I ask of you is that you please stop listening to guys that are aiming to transmute your resentment, anger, and hatred into financial capital. Stop listening to guys that fundamentally don't even like women.
I've personally been part of the group of young men who despise, are resentful to, and hate women. And I look back at those times, the reason is quite simply that I just didn't understand them, and I thought they were some kind of different species that I had had to learn to conquer because they had the secret. They had like the sex that everyone's telling me that I should really, really have lots of sex. Then they're not giving me sex.
Age 18 to 20, 21, I stumbled down the red pill rabbit hole. And there was these periods of like, yeah, I don't care about women. They're all stupid anyway. Like, it's a waste of your time. Just focus on yourself, king. And then more phases of like, yep, women are all hoes and I want to fuck them. And
for those of you that don't know who that was Hamza, who is pretty big in the manosphere scene. And I suppose you could consider him to be a kind of red-pilled person in recovery. And I'm just using him as an example because intuitively you may think, what do you mean the red pill people don't even like women? All they try to do is have interactions with them. And to that I would say that just because the red pill spends so much time trying to teach guys how to get women is not necessarily to say that they actually like them. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of red pill dudes don't actually like women is because, as far as they're concerned, women have so many prerequisites to even be considered liked. You know, the 3 6s, what is it? You got to be 6 foot, earning 6 figures with a 6-inch... Otherwise, you're just fundamentally considered low value. And even if you do hit that criteria that the red pill tells you to do, you may still not have luck with the ladies because, I don't know, women do this annoying thing where they exercise their own discernment and consciousness, which means they get to pick the people that they hang around with, and that may still not be you, despite the fact that you're in a Bugatti. I did all of this, and she still won't respond to my text message. With that aside, though, I do think that the main reason why the red pill doesn't actually like women is because women, for them, are simultaneously their object of desire, but also the reason, ostensibly, as far as they're concerned, for their suffering. And I think part of the reason why this is exacerbated even more is because, primarily, or first and foremost, a lot of these red pill dudes are businessmen, and when you're a high-value, rich, successful businessman, you can basically get whatever you want because you have the currency to exchange for it. However, love, romance, intimacy, connection, I was about to say it can't be paid for, and then I thought, well, it kind of can be paid for, but you can't actually pay for it. You get a facsimile, you get an imitation of, and I think that's part of the irritation. It's like, I can have everything in the world, and yet I still can't have, which I suspect stings for a red pill dude, because after all, what is a masculine man without his feminine woman? Let me do the hand sign. And I think this is explicitly why the contrast. Okay, women's biggest fear, by some outlets, by some publications, is being assaulted, or one of the other ones that I'll probably not include because it's bad, but you can probably imagine what it is intuitively. And then for men, the thing that they're most fearful of, by whatever, statistical blah blah or headline or whatever, men, by contrast, their biggest fear is rejection.
I don't know if women have any idea how paralyzing they are to especially young men. A very large number of my clinical clients, but also young men I've talked to in general, are absolutely terrified of women because they're terrified of being rejected. And the terror exists in precise proportion to the attraction to the woman. That's what beauty does to you. It's like that's why you're intimidated by a beautiful woman, a staggeringly beautiful woman. It's like, oh my God, attracted for sure, but definitely intimidated. It's like, well, that's because you aren't who you could be. Beauty does that to you. Because I'm not who I could be? Yeah, well, because beauty has that contrast. It's like... wow, if they're that beautiful, then suddenly look what I am. Look who I am. Oh. Yeah. That's when you need a drink. Yeah. Or like 10 of them. That's when you need, that's when you need a relapse.
Men have been terrified, paralyzed by women for as long as there have been timelines. And I think that this has been somewhat demonstrated in myth. And so, cast your mind, come with me, dear viewer, let us go into a little bit of a thought experiment. This, what I'm about to say next, isn't necessarily the kind of canonical interpretation of this myth, but, let's play around. Is there such a thing as a canonical interpretation in the first place, Art is to be interpreted. Anyway, whatever. Think about, say, the myth of Medusa. We have ostensibly, a kind of woman, long, feminine hair, caveat, the hair is made out of snakes, and being looked upon by her, making eye contact with her turns you to stone. Metaphorically speaking, symbolically speaking, it paralyzes you. Because men are terrified of women. Within that myth, Perseus cuts this broad cuts this broad's head off. And I think in some manner, this is somewhat of a tenuous link, a tenuous metaphor, so to speak, but I think in some manner, this is almost what Red Pill content does. It kind of like takes a woman that they're both simultaneously scared of and aroused by, and symbolically cuts her head off. Let me give you some examples. So we have a channel called Modern Women Archives, wherein there is a title of a video called Entitled Woman Gets Rejected and Blocked Before Her Date. First of all, you don't need the apostrophe after the gets. It's not possessive, despite the fact that many red-pilled men are possessive. Banter. And then we also have Woman Hits the Wall and Starts to Cry, as well as When Women Regret Feminism and Start to Cry. I'm sensing a pan here. There does seem to be a kind of schadenfreude aspect, you know? There seems to be so much more enjoyment to seeing women in pain than actually having a woman say on your arm as you skip through the park on your merry little way. Maybe if you weren't as, focused on seeing women upset and in pain, maybe you could actually materialize a relationship with one. Also, from a channel called Alpha Male Strategies, the thumbnail suggests that you should dump her today, King. And then you also have statements such as women bring no value, as well as how to attract more women. So, which one is it going to be? Why are you fundamentally trying to attract things that supposedly have no value? That seems a bit redundant. That seems like a bit of a contradiction. No? Again, like attracts like. Therefore, if you are coming to the conclusion that women have no value, maybe it is because you also bring no value. I do think, however, a substantial reason as to why red-pilled men don't like women is one of the things that we already went over earlier in regard to, this idea that women live life on easy mode, which you can only really come to that conclusion if you don't actually understand or even care to understand women's experiences. But then I also think a substantial reason as to why red-pilled men don't actually like women is because within red-pill culture, you're supposed to be seemingly hard and masculine and stoic basically at all times. And so whilst the red pill will say things like women are emotional creatures, you sound like a fucking idiot. Why are you calling a woman a creature, bro? You sound fucking weird. Anyway, women are emotional creatures, and yet they will disallow themselves, inhibit themselves from even being able to connect with a woman on an emotional level in case they lose their masculine frame. Bitch, if you're scared to lose your masculine frame, you probably never had it to begin with. Men seem so terrified of women in this regard that seemingly the only times in which they're willing to actually share their feelings and emotions, and sometimes even respect, is with other men.
Welcome back to the Red Pill Podcast.
Red Pill Podcast. I only hang out with men.
It's not gay.
It's just all the women I've ever met have hurt me to the point of tears. So I refuse to be around them anymore.
So now I just have sex with dudes.
Oh, yeah.
No more hurt.
I don't even like it, but it's like, I have to get it out.
I have a tweet for you, dear viewer. Just because you are sexually attracted to women doesn't mean you are romantically attracted to them. A lot of men are sexually attracted to women yet clearly hate them, while only praising other men. A lot of these dudes are heterosexual yet bromantic, homosexual, if you will. Following up that debatably pedestrian observation, I'll follow that hood classic up with something a bit more academic. So, to say that straight men are heterosexual is only to say that they engage in sex, fucking exclusively with the other sex, i.e. women. All or almost all of that which pertains to love most straight men reserve exclusively for other men, the people whom they admire, respect, adore, revere, honour, whom they imitate, idolize, and form profound attachments to, whom they are willing to teach and from whom they are willing to learn, and whose respect, admiration, recognition, honor, reverence, and love they desire. Those are overwhelmingly other men. In their relations with women, what passes for kindness, generosity, or paternalism, what passes for honor is removal of the pedestal. From women, they want devotion, service, and sex. Shorty, go off. I think you find examples of those observations that I've just shared with you within manosphere culture to, for instance, never be friends with a woman, or, sorry, they always call them female. What is the benefit of being friends with a female? You sound like a fucking dork, bro.
I can't obtain anything I'm interested in from a friendship with a female.
What's the deal with having a relationship with a woman that you can't have sex with? I'm telling you, bro, if you're only being friends with other dudes because other dudes on the internet told you to, you're missing out. And that's kind of gay. And I am not the only one that thinks so. So I have a friend that I have these fairly emotionally rich and deep conversations with, like once or twice a week or so. And a few weeks ago, he mentioned that he actually, on aggregate at least, prefers his female friends over his male friends. And part of the reason was because it's more common to have deeper conversations with them. It's less shallow, if you will. And you know what? I kind of agree. I am so grateful for the female friends that I have in my life, bro. The only pushback that I can anticipate in regard to what I just said will and can only come, in my opinion, from guys that are insecure about their own masculinity. Guys who author of the 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene, refers to as the tough guy. In The Laws of Human Nature, he talks about these men as follows. The tough guy, he projects a rough masculinity that is intended to intimidate. Do not be fooled by appearances. Such men have learned to conceal an underlying softness and emotional vulnerability from deep within that terrifies them. They are notoriously touchy and thin-skinned. And I think that lack of softness, that inability to have a emotional vulnerability with a woman is, third point in this section on women, the primary reason as to why red-pilled dudes will not have healthy relationships with women. And it's not because of the fault of women, it's because of their beliefs about women and relationships in general. Because red-pilled men do not know and do not want to learn how to play the love game, because what they actually prefer to play is the power game. And so here's a clip, we'll deconstruct that and then we'll unpack what else I mean by the power game over the love game in a second.
Who gives a fuck about a woman's orgasm? It's useless. And another telling thing too is that we asked the ladies on the panel yesterday, if a guy gave you great sex, would you still stay with him if he was a bum? And they said no. So why are you going to do all this extra shit when it's not really, like I said, you're stepping over dollars to pick up quarters.
I don't want to sound like an asshole, but a woman's ejaculation is irrelevant. Women derive their pleasure from serving a man they love, admire, and respect, and their children. I provide. So then you got to provide the ejaculations.
Before continuing, I need to introduce two terms from game theory, and those terms are zero-sum game and positive-sum game. A zero-sum game is a game wherein the nature of the game is adversarial. It is against one another. The only way that one side or party or team can win is if another side, party, or team loses. Conversely, a positive sum game, by contrast, is more collaborative. It's where both parties involved win. So, I would argue that love, when played correctly, is a positive sum game. It's as though the two parties come together. It's this motion. Whatever this is, that's what love is, okay? But the Red Pill seemingly teaches a relationship with love, with one's partner, that the relationship is fundamentally adversarial. The Red Pill's idea of love is zero sum, if they even believe in love at all.
Have you ever been in love?
To a woman? Female vaginas are disgusting. I've had love for women, but I don't think...
Really?
Yeah, I don't think it's in a man's best interest to be in love with a woman.
But anyways, back to this clip. Before moving on, I just want to deconstruct the fucking logic behind... the lack thereof. So the only way that this premise is correct, that the female orgasm is useless, only works if you are acting under the premise that sex is merely for procreation. However, then you would argue, in the event that procreation doesn't happen as a result of sex, then that sexual encounter was basically useless. And I don't even think Myron particularly believes in his own logic, given that by his own estimations, he's had sex with over 300 people, and I doubt each and every time he had sex with those women, it was for the purposes of procreation, you know? Additionally, the point of sex isn't fundamentally only for procreation. It's also for the sake of pair bonding, you know, the release of oxytocin, the other chemicals that are released in the brain to pair bond, to bring people together. Not that red-pilled dudes like Myron, for example, would even care for such a thing. Why would you ever become attached to a woman? After all, love is stupid. Maybe you're stupid.
It does appear that in females, sexual stimulation
and orgasm cause the release of oxytocin, whereas in males, sexual stimulation does not cause the release of oxytocin, but rather a different molecule, vasopressin, is triggered by sexual stimulation. But orgasm does trigger the release of oxytocin in males, but with a delay of about 30 minutes. But it does seem that oxytocin is involved in the sexual response in both males and females. It's thought that in species that pair bond, humans generally pair bond, not always, the return to more parasympathetic activation after orgasm and ejaculation is thought to increase the exchange of pheromonal odors, and to increase pillow talk and pair bonding of different kinds.
My guy is literally just wrong on all fronts. He just wants to dispose with the idea that he has any like responsibility in pleasuring his partner.
You only need one ejaculation to create life, and that's the man's. Now, with that said, does that mean I'm not gonna please my girl or whatever? Of course I will, but it's elective.
Definitely shit in bed.
And then the other part, you know, this idea of like, well, even if you care about her orgasm anyway, it's not going to make her stay. It's like, that is such a scarcity mindset reeking of like abandonment issues. It's like, why would I put effort into something that isn't a sure thing, that could leave me? Like, you crying piss baby. It's also particularly Machiavellian, so to do with like the dark triad traits. I'll do A, B, and C for you so long as you respond transactionally with X, Y, and Z for me. So he's correct in saying, sure enough, giving a woman an orgasm doesn't guarantee that she stays, but I will say that not giving a fuck about the pleasure and enjoyment of your partner does guarantee that the probability of her leaving goes up.
Private jets, we got you. Yachts, where you want to go. Cars, Bugattis, let's go. Whatever your travel destination, I could take you there, but you can't come. Bars! This isn't even about sex. It has nothing to do with sex. This is not about like the whole dynamic of people not caring about women's pleasure, all that stuff.
No.
This is just a reflection of one simple thing. You are just a thing.
Yes.
You do your job, and I'll do the bare minimum.
That's it.
Because things don't have opinions.
No.
Things don't talk back. Things don't ask for more. I'm just saying, why not just engage in sexual experiences where you guys are thinking of both people's pleasure? I don't know. Sound like a good time to me.
So, expanding this idea that the Red Pill teaches guys that love is a zero-sum game, I once heard Fresh and or Fit mention that essentially when a woman has sex with a guy, it's an L for her, a loss for you not young whippersnappers, and it's a W for the guy. The guy goes up, the woman goes down. These people have done hundreds upon hundreds of these podcasts, and, you know, generally speaking, I do my best to fucking militantly cite every single thing that I say within the videos. Unfortunately, I can't find the clip that I'm talking about where Myron said W for a guy, L for a woman. However, I do have something that is similar enough, so I'll read that to you now, dear viewer, coming from the mind of Emery Andrew Tate. Women are born with innate power, a form of magic, and every time somebody fucks them, they give some away. He takes it. That's why the most powerful men have slept with endless women, and the least magical women have slept with endless men. Why is this guy talking like a fucking anime villain? Like it's fucking Goku summoning a spirit bomb, and the more like energy he gets by having sex with women, the more powerful it becomes. Like, what are you talking about, my guy?
What do you think there's about the zero-sum mentality that I said about the manosphere? Because that's how it feels to me. It feels to me like a lot of the fundamentally good but delivered poorly and with a snide topspin advice from men sees any man's gain as a woman's loss. Like it's weird that a lot of the time they're talking about how to get women and to get with women, and then when a woman does, there's this sort of low-key admission that that's somehow their loss. Like, because you gave yourself away to this guy that we've coached to try and get himself into the position of how he can have sex with you, now you're a slut.
Yeah, that's totally toxic. It's bizarre.
So I hope that just exemplifies that, like, within red pill spaces, there is this idea generally that love is zero-sum, sex is zero-sum, it's a W for you, it's an L for them. And even though, you know, I don't quite have the Myron clip at hand for the moment, I'm sure you can imagine that the guy that wrote fucking Why Women Deserve Less has this idea that love is a zero-sum game, that relationships with women in and of themselves are zero-sum. But again, red pill dudes, manosphere dudes often think and speak in these very like business-like terms. So even the idea of like you being more attractive, it's almost as if your conversion rate goes up or something. And on that idea of conversion rate, I think that's why a lot of young men, red-pilled men in particular, are seeking status more and more in this very defined, rigid way, because as far as they're concerned, they have to essentially turn themselves into an offer. They need to be able to market themselves as the best, otherwise by their logic that like women will just leave, because women always go for the better, the higher option, because they're hypergamous, which, as we went over in the dating app video, is not necessarily. There's a hypergamy element, that is true, that we went over, but this idea that like fundamentally, you know, if you're on 6 figures but you meet someone that's on 7, she'll just like leave you for them because his on papers are better. Red pill dudes are trying their best to make themselves indispensable so that they can play the power game better. You can't leave me, I'm X, Y, and Z. Where are you gonna find somebody better than me?
People are not going to be quick to replace something or attempt to replace something which is basically irreplaceable. So if you're a high enough status individual, then you get to get away with more.
It's almost as if they had like a container for where their ideas of love would go into, and rather than pouring in something that's more healthy and long-term sustainable, they like read the 48 laws of power and poured that in there instead. So now they just think of love in power terms and can't stop themselves.
You don't want to appeal to people's love, to the fact that they like you. You want to appeal to the fact that they need you.
Baby boy, for the love of God, please stop getting your advice from these guys online that don't even care about love, that don't care about kindling or even encouraging and helping you to create a long-term, loving, sustainable relationship. If they actually cared about your long-term prospects, they would stop focusing on this kind of superficial bullshit over here and start talking about things that do actually predict long-term relationship success, such as, I don't know, kindness.
But you asked about income, and I want to make sure that, because I had David Buss on my podcast, and he's really the expert on this. So yes, it's true that resource potential is an important variable, because people have to think about safety and childcare and a number of things. More important than any other feature across all cultures is that the woman reports that she sought someone who is kind to them. Okay, so even if you think of like extreme money, right? Extreme money, or you think of extreme bodies or extreme resources, right? That somebody has. Women, in terms of who they tend to pair up with long term, what is shown up over and over again in the data is that their top priority is that someone be kind to them. In other words, they're not interested in being with someone who's really wealthy who treats them like garbage.
Is that
and
also...
I think this gets lost because people think, oh, it's all about money. It's not all about money.
Okay.
It's about safety and kindness, because you're talking about a long-term bond.
So maybe it would be a good idea to take on board that kind of idea instead of continuing with beliefs such as this thing that I'm about to read you. Good friend is late 30s, in shape, makes over 300k a year, has a condo overlooking a great downtown, one of the top 10 biggest penises I've seen. Pause. He gets constantly ghosted, ignored for days, and is told after a date or two that this isn't working. Modern women are broken. Imagine that being the kicker. Okay, so you were told to get rich, get in shape, have the house, have the car, etc., and women still don't want to be you. Your personality, that guy's personality, must be so fucking clapped to dissuade women that by all the red pill accounts, women should be fucking throwing themselves at him because he, you know, he's done everything, and yet they still don't. Maybe red pill ideology, in regard to getting women at least, bites off way more than it can chew. Maybe the red pill has got its equation incorrect. I'm gonna explain in a future video that whilst I do think that the red pill's preoccupation with attaining things like power and status and money, fundamentally, I think those things are good. You probably want those things on your side more than not. However, I do think that proclivity for focusing on it so much, so intently, at the expense of borderline everything else, fundamentally comes from a trauma response, either from the relationship that they have with a parent or both, or a previous relationship. And I know on the surface that probably won't make sense to you watching, but I will unpack it in a future video. I promise you, baby boy. For now, I do just want to say that I find it so ironic, so tragically ironic, that whilst Red Pill Manosphere ideology encourages men in particular to be so courageous and forthright and lacking in fearfulness, and yet they are so fearful of being vulnerable. You may think that that is bizarre of me to say, or as though I'm like advocating for men to be weak or what have you, which I don't think that I am fundamentally. I'm merely saying that in order to conjure, say, love, connection, vulnerability is a precursor. And whilst being protected and defended in, say, something like a suit of armor, metaphorically speaking, if you are wearing a suit of armor, you fundamentally cannot make a genuine connection with somebody else because you're fucking plated up from top to bottom. How are you supposed to connect? You know, the Krabby Patty secret formula to love necessitates that there is vulnerability involved, and Red Pill Manosphere ideology is fundamentally dissuading men from being able to either be vulnerable as well as see the utility, see the value within it, which is sad because I think primarily, you know, men and women are looking for the same thing. Once you get past the artifice, and that same thing, of course, is intimacy.
I learned that intimacy is the only thing I'm looking for. And when I say that, intimacy really means that someone knows you, all your stuff, everything about you, good and bad, and loves you anyway.
Why don't men invite or allow that level of intimacy?
Well, first of all, it requires vulnerability. It requires you. You can't get intimacy without vulnerability. It's impossible because you're going to have to tell your stuff. Because if you can't tell, you'll never find intimacy. So, but that's the only thing you're looking for. So what happens is you get sex. Sex and love, two different things. Lots of sex. And it's always unfulfilling because you're not getting what you need.
Baby boy, there are very few things guaranteed in this life. However, if you got to this point in the video, if you allow me to merely get through the next 30 seconds of YouTube formalities, I assure you, I guarantee that you will be excited. And so, first and foremost, I just want to say, please, baby boy, drop a like on the video, leave a comment down below, because as usual, I'll be snorkeling down there, and you know, hopefully some lively discussion will be happening down there. Interact with one another, interact with me. On the end card, I will have videos talking about dating apps, which I mentioned throughout this video, as well as the video that kicked off this mini-series about men in the first place, men's relationship with Jordan Peterson. If I've left out anything from this video, which invariably I probably have, you know, I can't say everything, you know, check the pinned comment down below, wherein you will also see, should you want to, and you do want to, because you're a laytonicles super fan. Oh, I'm gonna unalive myself. Anyway, free blog post for Patreon that you don't necessarily have to be a patron for in order to read. However, if you would like to be a patron like these incredible people on screen right now, then please go over to the Patreon and help me create more things like this, because I really want to build as much as possible, but it really is all me doing this. I'm scripting, I'm researching, I'm writing, I'm presenting, I'm everything. Now, in between Rollo Tomassi, the grandfather of the Red Pill, telling young men that they should get vasectomies, and Fresh and or Fit doing a on stream, and then also Sneako saying this.
And let's be honest, the Red Pill is dying. It's over.
I think it's fair to say that the Red Pill is collapsing, and so there seems to be no greater time than right now to deconstruct the remaining lies that are no doubtably permeating either your brain or the brains of many men. And then I'm also contemplating doing a kind of like psychoanalysis of the Red Pill. You know, what are the actual underlying draws, you know, because like I'm kind of like cerebral and that. What is actually bringing men to this ideology? Because of course there are the logical and ideological aspects to it, but I do think a lot of the draws to this fundamentally are emotional, deeply psychological, and I think I somewhat touched upon that toward the end when I started talking about how, like, I think a lot of the guys that gravitate toward the Red Pill and Manosphere have unprocessed trauma, and a lot of this ideology is a trauma response. If I have left anything else, you will be able to find it in the pinned comment down below. However, outside of that, as always, thanks for hanging out with me. I had fun hanging out with you. Parasocial relationship game 100.
デートに来る。